everybody. Welcome to our monthly webinar here at Reliant Behavioral Health. We appreciate you attending, and I think we've got a great presentation today. With us is Rebecca Sinclair. Rebecca has been in the mental health industry for many years, a lot of EAP experience, and currently she is an agreement monitor for the Oregon Health Professional Services Program. So we're really happy to have Rebecca here, and we're really looking forward to learning some relaxation techniques. Rebecca, thanks.
You're welcome. Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the relaxation techniques, some instant relaxation techniques, and probably most of you know a lot of what we'll talk about today. You might take one or two new tips away with you. What I want you to notice is that at the very bottom of every page there is practice, 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 because what happens is we may know some of these things, but we don't always. Is it not playing, or is it playing? Is it okay?
It's showing the screen.
Okay.
All right. Was that playing?
Yeah, it wasn't on mine.
Okay. Well, there are a few of us here in our room today, so we're going to be talking back and forth once in a while together. So practicing, and also how do you remember to do these kinds of things throughout your day, throughout your work day, throughout your day at home or your evening. When you get stressed, that's not exactly the time we remember what we can do to just change our channel. So the first page that we start out on, I'm going to just read. It says, although relaxation is often considered a luxury, there's increasing scientific evidence that it is at least as important as exercise in maintaining good health. So I love that one, because sometimes getting out to exercise is not the most fun thing we all want to really get out and do, and some people just love it. So part of the reason I think that we have a lot more stress and it's harder to practice, and I'm going to read this little statement. It says, in the daily edition of the New York Times, it contains more information than the average person in the 16th century encountered in their entire lifetime. So if you really think about that, think about how much more information we have. And so if any of you ever have problems with your memory, that might be another thing to think about, because we've got so much information in there, and that's what I use when I can't remember things. I've got too much information in there. And maintaining a level of relaxation, it doesn't necessarily require long periods at all of silence, meditation, exercise, or vacations. Even those, I mean, those are all great. But you can have just several brief techniques to use every day that help you maintain just a more calm and effective way of responding to all those daily demands in your workplace. And I'm going to also add at home, because research indicates that short breaks throughout the day are as effective and often even more effective than a long break. So a long meditation or a long vacation or a long silent period. So today that's what we're going to start doing, is talking about some of those things you can do quickly, and then of course practice them so that they become more part of your day. If you turn, we're going to turn to the next page, and I'm going to ask you to go ahead and take this questionnaire for yourself and give yourself a score. And I need to ask, do they have papers, or are they just looking at this screen?
Just look at the screen.
So as you look at the screen, when you mark those always, sometimes, or never after you read the question, write down the number beside 1, 2, 3 through 6. Write down what number you have. If you do it always, it's a 3. Sometimes you're going to write down 2. Sometimes you'll write down never. Okay, so let's see. I'll give you a few seconds. Try to do this kind of quickly, because we have a couple more of these pages to do. For those of you just joining, read through those questions quickly. Put a number down on a paper, because we're going to add those numbers up at the end. Russ, would you like to sing a little song while they're doing that?
They wouldn't like that.
No, that would not be relaxing. Okay. So hopefully you have. Do you think they've had enough time to do that page? Let's go to the next page. And now we have 7, 8, 9, and 10. If you can give yourself the number of 3, 2, or 1 by each one of those. Na 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 na. Okay, do you think that's enough time? Let's go to the next page. And again, 11 through 14. Go ahead and give yourself a score of 3 to 1. Almost done. We're getting close. Okay. Does anybody need a little more time? Can you just quickly say if you need just a second more, or just want to go ahead and add the score up? Don't go to the next page yet. Was there a question that came in? Okay. So if you can add your score up, I'm going to just give you a quick interpretation of what this little scale means. Yeah, just a minute. Okay. Those of you who scored between 33 and 42 would be considered having a high ability to relax. Some of you may find that surprising, and some of you may find that, yeah, that sounds like me. 24 to 31, average ability to relax, and 15 to 23, a low ability to relax. So if you were to, can you go to the next page and look at those questions? How many of you, nobody's going to see you, so you don't have to worry. How many of you scored with a high ability to relax? Could you add that in? Just go ahead and mark it.
I'm going to send out the poll.
Right. We're going to send out the question, and you can then send us your answer. The poll is open. How many of you did score that you had a high ability to relax? Getting close to a final answer there. Getting really close. Getting close.
Wow, 64% scored average ability.
64% said an average, 30% regarded as low. 9% of you out there are high ability to relax. So that's great. Maybe the ones that have that high ability might add to some of their tools, and some of you in the 64 percentile will add more, and those in the 30 percentile can maybe take some more things away with you and call your EAP. So let's go back now to the first page of the questions. We're going to backtrack for a minute because I wanted to go over a couple of those questions. So number 1 page, I'm just going to focus basically on number 6 and just find out if you feel like you have time to relax and stretch or exercise during the day. And I think that's really hard for people who are in a workstation or are sitting at their desks, or for people who are in front of a computer quite a bit, because sometimes we get so involved in that it's really hard to jump up and do something physical or even move around. And we really, really know that we need to. I have a cousin who actually works for PBS back in Boston, and they have kind of this rule for their staff that they're supposed to get up and move every 20 minutes. Does that happen? Probably not, but it certainly is a standard they're trying to get their staff to start doing. So as we go through these next several pages, there are just a few stretches, but right now, if you feel like it and you want to, you can stand up and just put your hands above your head, clasp your hands together, and turn them upside down and stretch way high. rest, you can stand up.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you can do this sitting down, or you can do it standing up. Thank you, Brenda. Standing. Okay, that's just one. Okay, just standing, even a few minutes. Okay. Thank you. Also, you can also, there are several companies now I've read about, large companies who are doing standing meetings where they actually stand in a meeting during a meeting. Or maybe 20 minutes into the meeting they decide to stand. Everybody kind of does that. I mean, unless it's really hard for someone to stand. So let's go to the next page. And the first two questions about, taking time to relieve that physical position required in your work. I'm just going to read what the Mayo Clinic put out on standing, some of the research that came out from that. And it talks about what the risks are of sitting too much. Researchers they've really linked sitting for long periods of time with a number of health concerns. This comes from the Mayo Clinic. They include obesity and metabolic syndrome. And the metabolic syndrome is a cluster of conditions that include increased blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, and an abnormal cholesterol level. And a recent study that compared adults who spent less than 2 hours a day in front of the TV or other screen-based entertainment with those who logged more than 4 hours a day of recreational screen time, or those with greater screen time, they had nearly a 50% increased risk of death from any cause. That sounds pretty intense to say death, but from any of those causes. And 125% had an increased risk of events associated with cardiovascular disease, such as chest pain or heart attack. So we know that sitting really is a concern for all of us. And just like we said, the Mayo Clinic suggests doing a lot more standing, whether you can stand at your desk or get up and stand for just even 10 or 15 seconds. That'll start getting your body to move a little bit. Number 9 and 10 is, do you check yourself for habitual tension habits like frowning, clenched fists, tight jaws, hunched shoulders, pursed lips? I don't know about you, but I know that when I'm at the computer, I will often find myself with my shoulders kind of hunched up and tense. So what I'm practicing now is to try to notice that, take a deep breath and let them drop, and then just go ahead and see if I can let myself relax a little bit while I'm doing some work. And I don't know, sometimes it's important to have a work friend who's doing the same thing with you, because they can come in and they can just put their hand on your shoulder or just say, hey, remember, or let's breathe or something, just to give you that quick clue. Okay, what am I doing? Do I need to release, untighten my jaws, like let my jaw drop a minute? What can I do to just quickly take that moment to relax? I don't know how many of you on your computers have ever seen, it kind of stops for a minute and there's that little round circle that keeps going down. What's that circle called, right? Oh, our IT guy doesn't know. It's just a little round circle, goes around and around. And, we all get like, oh, no, my gosh, my computer's so slow. You could pair that with a relaxation response when you see the circle from now on. If it does make you a little bit stressed and you're waiting for something, you might want to say, oh, whoa, this is a time I can take to just take a deep breath, relax. This is a great trigger for me to just let my shoulders loose, let my jaw loose, let me relax. On the next page, on number 11, it says, do you find it easy to relax, allowing you to sleep easily and deeply? Well, I think sleep and sleep problems and insomnia is an all-time high in this culture right now. And, one thing we know is turning off electronics, TV, etc. They say about an hour before you go to bed because it's really something that can keep your mind really active and busy. Also, how do you release tension on number 12? By simple movements that allow you to sleep well. Yoga teachers sometimes talk about doing downward dog or doing a few just stretches before you get in bed and go to sleep, because it allows your body to just get a little bit more relaxed by doing some stretching. And on number 14, do you plan your life to have a change of people, scenery, and thoughts? it's really critical to have a lot of variety, to jump shift. I call it jump shifting, change things up, changing the channel. I talked to a young man yesterday who has a fairly physical kind of job, but he does a lot of reports also, has to supervise other employees, and he said every minute of his day is just packed, and so he just simply left the facility he works in for half an hour, went out, got on a walk, and came back, and he felt quite much more relaxed, and it really helped change the channel for him. So we'll go on now. We go past those polling questions and go to page 9. So 1 minute breaks throughout the day. So we're talking about short things. So I'm going to ask you all to take a break. Does anyone in here have a second hand on their clock, watch, or not? Can you set a timer for 1 second, Joe? Okay. I'm going to ask you, wherever you're sitting, to just take a minute. We're going to just close our eyes because that kind of helps us take a break. And I'm going to ask you to just, when Joseph starts the clock, he's going to time it for a minute. Close your eyes and just take in a deep breath. So Joseph, start the clock, and we're going to see what 1 second feels like. It started, and when it's done, I'll tell you. Just take in a deep breath and focus on your breathing. And I won't say any more until that minute is up. Okay, the minute is up, and now we have some questions for you on that minute. So number 1 is, who thought 1 minute seemed longer than you had imagined it? How many of you thought 1 minute was shorter than you imagined it? And how many of you thought it was just right on? Was it complete?
74% have voted. Just kidding.
Is that total minute? Not yet.
Getting close.
We're getting close.
80% of people have voted.
Keep voting.
A little more time.
Just not quite done voting. Anybody else want to vote? Okay. Should we
Close it.
close the poll?
Okay.
Okay. So what we're finding out is that the majority of you felt like the minute was a little longer, and a third of you felt, no, not, well, kind of a third, right? Would think that it was felt just like about a minute, and 11% thought it might have been shorter than what you thought. So typically, people do feel like that minute is a little longer than they thought. If it's just right on, that's great, and if it was shorter than you thought. The thing that we do know, though, is that if you can take 1 minute, it's actually more time than we realize, and set a timer for yourself and just stand up at your desk or do something that gives you 1 minute of a relaxation. If you did that 10 times a day, 10 minutes out of your day at intervals would really, really lower your stress level in an unimaginable way. Those short breaks are really amazing. So let's take a look at some of what those instant relaxation techniques can be. We talked about breathing, and when you breathe, a lot of you probably already know that there are a lot of different ways people breathe. But the best way for us to get the most oxygen and to really breathe and not tighten our shoulders up is to breathe by breathing in very deeply by pushing your belly out when you breathe And we're going to take in a few breaths. And I want you to just kind of notice, and I'm really glad you can't see us because, you know, you can see yourself. Don't look at me, Joseph. When you breathe, take in a deep breath and notice if your shoulders go up or if you can push the air out and your belly goes way out. So let's do that together. So take in a real deep breath, counting to 5. 1, 2, push your belly out. 3, 4, 5. Okay, now push out all that air and keep pushing out the air as long as you can to get every bit of that out. Let's do that one more time. Notice if your belly goes out or if you're pulling your shoulders up or your chest goes up. It should really be a practice where you practice breathing where your belly goes way out. That's where you get the most air intake. Let's do it again. Breathe in on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now exhale, and exhale every bit of that toxin that's going to leave your body. This is something that we teach people who feel like they're having an anxiety attack or they're not being able to catch their breath. It's counterintuitive, but we feel like we need to keep breathing, trying to get air in when we're having an anxiety attack of any kind, or we just feel like we can't catch our breath. This technique, by taking in a deep breath and pushing all the air, all the toxins out, allows your body to open up to being able to self-regulate your breathing again. So you might try that sometime. On the stretching, we have a couple pictures in here later on stretching. You can use stretches that work for you. If you're in physical therapy, you could stand up and do just a couple of your exercises. But any kind of stretching that isn't going to hurt you or you know that you can do, if you can just do that a couple, 3 times a day, that would be great. Humor is another thing, because if we can use humor and laughter during the day, it lowers your blood pressure after you've had a big laugh, oxygenates your system, and it lowers your cortisol. What's cortisol? Anybody want to guess? Can you write that in and see if you get it right? Joe, is anybody writing that in?
Anyone yet?
What is it? What did they answer it? Someone wrote an answer.
Survey says stress hormone.
You're right. Okay, whoever said that. Cortisol is our stress hormone, and we have loads and loads of that typically during the day. So the breathing, the stretching, laughter lowers that cortisol level in your body. And if you did that 10 times a day, you would continue to lower your cortisol. Laughter also stimulates both sides of your brain, and so it really does, and this comes from the Mayo Clinic, laughter is when it stimulates both sides of your brain, it helps you with your memory, your creativity, and your ability to learn. So again, at work, if you're doing some laughing, it actually relaxes you and opens you up so you can have some of access to that memory, creativity, and ability to learn. In Japan, they did a test that after someone did some laughing, and these were on people who were both diabetic and non-diabetic. After a good laugh, after they had eaten, their blood sugar level went down below normal. And we also know that cortisol is something that can help create some of that blood sugar to rise. So we're just talking about these simple techniques that can help you to relax and give you a lot more a sense of health. Our attitude is another thing that can really make a big difference, and that is, we're all born with a certain kind of index. It's called our happiness index, and happiness can mean anything to anyone. It could be just a sense of feeling comfortable or satisfied. But the good news is that when you have a negative attitude, it adds to your stress. And we can all get into negative places. We have that capacity because we're all human beings. But 50% of that happiness index or that feel-good index is genetic. It's how we're born. So 10% comes from our environment. And the good news is 40% of it is what we can create on our own. So if we can actually create and shift into a different place so that our attitude is much more positive, it's going to give us a lot more relaxation and a much healthier way of being. And so I ask people to kind of look around where they are, where they're sitting, and see if they can quickly find 5 things that are red in your environment. 5 things, real quick. So the people in this room have found 5 things that are red. Okay. If you didn't find 5 things, maybe you found a few. And how many of you have ever purchased another car, a new one to you, let's say, or a new bicycle, if you don't drive? And you all of a sudden notice that same model of that car or that same style of a bicycle on the road, and you're noticing it. Most of us will notice maybe about every 6th car or whatever. We'll keep noticing it. And the reason we do that is because we're looking for it. So if you're looking for something that has a giggle or something that feels good, guess what? You're going to find it. That shifts your attitude. And if you're looking for a conspiracy, you know what? That's what we're going to find too. And that will then add to your cortisol level. The next one is on jump shifting, changing the channel. That simply means jumping from those neural pathways in our brain that really hold negativity and jumping to the ones that hold more positivity. So many things we can do to do that. And that is listening to music, taking a walk, drinking some water, walking into the office with somebody you feel really comfortable with, finding something that makes you smile. Those are jump shifting is something you can do. Actually, just thinking about a funny movie or sitcom that you have seen changes your entire cellular level and decreases your cortisol if you just think about it. Having a funny picture on your desk or a picture of your family, something that makes you feel good, will do the same thing. Again, at the bottom, you see practice, practice, practice. That's because these things take so much practice and awareness. That's why I say it's good to have a friend at work, someone you know that's a coworker, who can continue to remind you and you remind them, hey, have you done this? Have you jump shifted for a while today? Have you stood up? Let's stand up. Let's do a stretch. So on page 12 is just the one exercise for standing with your arms raised over your head. Page 13 is the one where you try to grasp your elbow and left hand of behind your back and just get as close as you can. That opens your chest and lets you have more capability of breathing deeply. Those are just some of the examples of stretches. We're going to now go to another thing we can do, which is meditation. And meditation, I don't have time to do it. Or some people say, I can't make it through my day without a good 20-minute meditation in the morning. If you're not a morning person, that doesn't always work, or one before you go to bed. The good news is when you practice medication, medication. Don't practice medication unless you really have to have it. It's paying attention and focusing your awareness. That's the process of meditation. Even a few minutes a day can bring really big benefits. So when you meditate, a number of desirable things can begin to happen very slowly at first, and then they deepen over time. And again, if we turn to the next page, we know that science tells us that meditation is really good for the brain, and it can lead to better choices because it helps you learn how to put some space between something that happens and your reactivity time. So sometimes it's really hard not to react to something that you see or hear, but if you take a little space sometimes and don't react, it can lead to a much better outcome. You can start really slowly with meditation. Meditation isn't any very fancy thing. It's some place where you sit, where you're quiet, you sit up straight, close your eyes, and just take in some deep, deep breaths, and just focus on your breath. The thing is that You're always going to be thinking. So when you're focused on your breath, if you notice that your mind is wandering away to things you're thinking about or worried about, that's okay. You just say, I'm noticing that, let it go, and come back to looking at your breathing, noticing your breathing. So you could start that for 1 minute a day or 5 minutes, then increase it to 10. And remember, your mind will wander. Just bring it back to where you were. If we go to page 16, we're going to look at just other techniques that can help. And we talked about jump shifting. When you get a negative thought, or when you're thinking negatively or you're feeling down, you can practice jump shifting to your positive neural pathways. We were born, and it comes from our ancestors, with much stronger neural pathway systems that are negative, the ones that are really looking for danger, because that was the way of survival. So they're always with us, and they're always there. So if you build your more positive neural pathway system in your brain by learning to relax, taking these moments that help you to relax, some of these techniques that you can use, add to your box of how you relax, thinking of something fun, building those, remembering things that make you feel good, and continue to build your neural pathways that are more positive. When you get into that really negative place, you can remind yourself, well, let me try to jump shift to something that makes me feel better. Let me go for a walk. Let me go talk to someone that helps me feel better. Let me talk to someone who might help me see this in a different way if I can't come up with many alternatives on how to see this particular situation. Mental pictures are about visualization. I mean, it's like, again, thinking about your favorite place to be. Put yourself there in your mind and try to remember the sights and the sounds and the smells of where you are. Just for a minute, put yourself there. Take all of that in great detail. That gives your body and your mind and your spirit a sense of relaxation. Vibration in the limbic system. We know from science that the part of the limbic system that starts at the base of our head and goes down through the center of our body to our gut, if there's a vibration that happens in our vocal cord area, that begins to really calm our entire system, our mind and our body. So that's probably where the term Om comes from. When you say it slowly, it vibrates your body. If you're alone where you are or with other people and don't feel uncomfortable doing that, I'm going to just do that with you for just a couple seconds. And if you guys want to join in, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too, the folks in the room with me. Or one, or just something that vibrates will essentially affect your entire limbic system. Okay, we're going to turn to, singing also does that. I don't know how many of you sing, but anytime you can have an advantage to sing, whether it's in your car, the shower, at home, wherever you sing, that also does a lot of the same kind of work for your limbic system. We've talked about the deep breathing already and how important that really is for us, because most of us are breathing much more in a very shallow way, particularly when we're working or stressed or we have to get something done. Progressive relaxation is something where you can just sit in a chair, close your eyes, and you just start with your toes. And you just squeeze your toes together. If you can do that really quickly, squeeze your toes together really tightly. Hold it for just a few seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now let go. You can start to feel your toes relax, and then you can move all the way up your body, just focusing on letting go of some of the tension all the way up through your neck, all the way up to your head. The next page, 18, is to daydream. We know that just daydreaming about something is another quick technique that helps us to begin to relax. Again, thinking about that funny movie, or thinking about a dream you have, or thinking about something you want to do, or what you might be making for dinner, or where you might be going, something to give you that daydream, whatever you want to daydream about. Reliving that happy moment. Go back to a happy moment, think of one, and relive it. Stand up at your desk. Give yourself some kind of a trigger to help you stand up at your desk. Some people actually set a timer in order to do that. My timer is too loud. Some people have a real pretty bell on their phone that maybe once an hour goes off, and you just, when that happens, you can just stand up or move or stretch at your desk. And smile, even just to yourself. Research indicates that a faked smile changes your body chemistry, and it lowers your cortisol the same way that a genuine smile does, which is just incredible to imagine. It's got a bounce back effect also, because it means it makes someone else feel better, and that energy then between you and that other person that you smiled at is going to really reset your stress response and lower your cortisol. I know these all seem very simple, but these simple activities actually are affecting a very complex system that we have. So we're going to just look at how do you create a little more happiness in your life, because those things are very relaxing. And just have fun pretending. How might a happy person feel right now? How might a happy person handle this situation? Walk down the hall. Try pretending at first, because sometimes it starts to feel real. And we're not talking about ignoring real feelings that you have. It's really important to address those, to talk to someone that you trust about things that aren't comfortable. But these are just some things you can jump shift to, particularly when you're at work. Thinking of what you really do well. Think of some of those accomplishments you've had. Those things strengthen those, really strengthen those positive neural pathway systems in your brain. And it gives a boost to your feel-good neurotransmitters, which then, again, will help you relax. Devoting time to friends with positive relationships that you have the strongest association with can really help you get more of that happiness, more of that relaxation, and focus on what you're grateful for. If you can't think of anything you might be grateful for, you want to ask a friend that knows you pretty well, what are some things you might be grateful for? And then think of about 5 of those things before you go to bed at night, because those are things that might help you relax and go to sleep a little bit faster. The next page is finding a quiet place. Take in a deep breath. These are just reminders. We're continuing to talk about the same things because we're practicing those. Slowly letting out, holding that breath, letting it out, thinking the word relax. Taking another deep breath, letting it out, thinking of the word relax. Tightening your fists, counting to 3, opening them. Take another deep breath, letting it out. Tightening your fists can really give you an idea of how tense your body has been. Let's go to the next page. Just things you can say to yourself is, I need not, in fact, I can't prove my worth by what I do or don't do. I really can ask myself, so how am I being? There's a kindergarten teacher who, at the beginning of the year, would ask each little student that walked in, instead of what we always ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? She would say to them, how do you want to be when you grow up? And she asked them that throughout the year. And I felt that to be quite a stunning question, because It really isn't about what you're doing for work, what your position is, whatever you consider it to be. It's how are you being when you're doing what you're doing, whether at work or home. And that's a great question to ask yourself over and over. And it also has a way of relaxing you so that you don't have to feel like, am I being worthy? Am I doing enough? It's important to ask yourself or say to yourself that you can cope with most situations because you're adequate. I can cope with most situations. When we really think about it, if you're sitting here and we're all together, we've coped with a lot of situations. You might be in the middle of one right now. It might be a good idea to say, you know, I think I can cope with most situations. And I have people I can talk to about it. The next one is, I very much enjoy the approval of others, but it's not essential to my happiness and growth. We don't constantly have to get approval from other people. If we go to the next page, 22, I think that sometimes people carry around, I know we all do, some sense of guilt, or I should have done it this way, or I didn't do that, or I made this mistake, or I did, you know. I think it's really important to remember that each decision we make is made based on the awareness, the information, and where we were at the time we were in that situation. It was based on that information, what we knew. Otherwise, we might have done it differently. And if you're asked a question and you don't have the answer, just say, I don't know, and I'll try to find out. The last one is that you really don't need to feel an obligation to form an opinion just because someone asks for it. Again, you can say, I'm really not sure how I feel about that. Let's look at the next page, just a few final ideas. I love the first one, and it's just eat a square of dark chocolate. Because chocolate is not only rich in flavonols, but cocoa comes from, causes the brain to release endorphins the same way that the feel-good hormones you get after you do a run. So I've kind of decided at this point I'm going to eat that square of chocolate, and I probably won't go for a run today. Number 2 is embracing that rush. Okay, so this is considered very short term because stress can actually help with memory and brain function if it's real short term. So you can use that in an initial burst of energy to make a deadline. And a deadline is always kind of a crazy word. I think I prefer to really get to that target date, and then you learn to kind of let go of it after that. It's kind of that fight or flight syndrome. You got to get to the target date. That short rush of getting to it can help your brain and your memory function better, but then it takes about 90 minutes for your metabolism to return to normal. So you want to make sure you let go of that and do some of those short techniques to help your body, your mind begin to relax. Giving a bear hug to someone triggers that release of those warm and fuzzy hormones. And if you don't have, someone who's worthy of a hug that's close enough by, shaking hands can work too to do that. Take a YouTube break. Watch something funny. I mean, that can really that can really change your sense of being. And find a green space. So walking outside in nature can relieve tension. I mean, even just 5 minutes outside lifts your mood. If it's raining, you take an umbrella. Or just walk out and try to look around and see if you can find a green space or the blue sky. Anytime you can get out in nature makes a huge, huge difference in our sense of well-being. And we're really very disconnected from nature in our culture. Because when you live and work in a city, it's hard. It's really hard sometimes to feel like you can get reconnected to nature. So again, these are things that we practice and practice and practice. And they're things that aren't that easy to remember when you're really stressed. So see if you can put things around you to help trigger a memory of doing some of these things for yourself You're the only one who can really do that for yourself. Get a partner at work or friend, or talk to someone you live with, or someone who can call you and remind you of just some of these things to start adding to your life. Pick one or two or three to give yourself a start at and start practicing them. Do the things you already know. And then let's go to our last page. Maybe it's time for a nap. If you've had your lunch and you're ready to go put your head on your desk, we do know that some companies actually do have places where people can nap. If yours doesn't, then take those deep breaths and try not to fall out of your chair. I know we're kind of getting towards the end and we have some extra minutes here, and if you have any questions that you have sent in or want to send in, I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. And Joe, did you get any questions that came in?
I had a few questions just asking if we were going to be having this presentation available for people later. So we are going to post it on our YouTube channel. You can get there on our website. Go to myrbh.com, MYRBH, like Reliant Behavioral Health.com, and then you can just click on the YouTube picture, and then all of our past webinars are actually on there as well. And then once we have this one posted up, we'll be able to view it all again there. And I'm not seeing any other questions people have yet, but if you have anything you'd like to ask Rebecca, definitely feel free to do so. We've got a couple minutes left.
Sure. Go ahead and send in any questions, and I can give you a little bit more information if there is anyone who wants to send in a question. Stress affects every cell in your body, which we've talked about. So let's just talk about our eyes. Your pupils will dilate when you're under stress, and your eyelids can start twitching. So, if you see a friend or coworker whose eyes are twitching and their eyes are dilating, you might want to just put your hand on their shoulder if you know them really well and say, hey, let's just breathe here. It can also sharpen your hearing, which is sometimes a good thing, but if it continues over a long period of time, you risk getting tinnitus and hearing loss. So the ringing in your ears or hearing loss. Your throat gets more tight, it tightens up and gets spasms. So if that continues over a lot of time, you can actually get acid reflux. I know a lot of people who are dealing with that right now. It also surges your glucose. There's a real surge in it, so there's what happens over a long period of time. You can get type 2 diabetes. Let me know if a question comes in, Joe.
One question, somebody wanted some clarification. You said there was a connection between ears ringing. Could you go over that?
Right. It's just that when your hearing sharpens, it gets louder. And so when you're under a lot of pressure, what typically happens is your hearing does get sharper. So noises can sound louder, and what happens is the little filaments in your ears can start to degenerate. And this is over a period of long-term stress. That's why we want to take these short breaks. So you can get tinnitus, which is ringing in your ears, or hearing loss, and that can begin to happen.
Someone also asked if there are some specific studies you can point to, just as far as some of this research that you're talking about?
Some of the research. Well, if you go on to the Mayo Clinic website and just really look up some of their healthy lifestyle information, James Levine, MD, PhD, that's Levine, has some of the information on what happens when you're sitting too much. And that's a really good question, because I have all of these pieces of research that I've done over the last 20-some years, and I don't always have that with me right away. So I'm going to do that for the next one. I really apologize for not having those out there, but I'll pull some of those studies together, because that is a very good question.
Got another question. Any tips for dealing with stressful coworkers? My boss deals with every situation with very high level of stress, which trickles down and is hard not to take on.
Oh boy, that's a really good question. So when your boss has lots of stress and you take it in, some of the things that you can do are to actually visualize yourself when you're in the midst of that situation, taking in some breaths. You don't have to do deep, deep breathing in front of your boss, but visualize doing more breathing. Take a step back, even if it's in your mind. Say to yourself that you're going to be able to figure out how to cope with this. Tell yourself at the time you're with that person that you'll have time to go back, sit at your desk or wherever you are to finish whatever you need to do. We also know that the faster you go and the more you try to speed up, the more mistakes we make. And we know that if you take time to go a little bit slower, you will even 15 seconds, you will probably add more work to your day than if you were to speed into it. I'd also really focus on some of those things that you say to yourself. My worth is not about what this person's stress is about. Some people actually form a light around themselves so that they feel like they're kind of protecting their own space with that stress. You can go to someone you feel confident, you trust, and talk about how you're feeling stressed and what can I do to start relaxing myself, because you walk away with that stress. You need to be able to do something for yourself to begin to de-stress after you've been in that situation. I have to tell you, we got a ping pong table for our lunchroom, and we noticed that if people are in the middle of a stressful project, they go in and play 10 or 15 minutes of ping pong, and they come out feeling amazingly better. In fact, one of my coworkers had a headache, went in, played a few minutes of ping pong, came out and said, my headache's gone. I mean, it was just that shift. But it really is focusing on what can I do for myself, because I'm not going to change this person who's in front of me. Any other questions? I know that's a very short answer. Did you get another question, Joe?
Yeah, somebody also mentioned possibly the importance of like ergonomics and just kind of the immediate surroundings of them in the office.
That is extremely important. So if you can get to your HR person, look up what ergonomics for your particular setup at your desk, how high your feet should be off the ground, where your hands should be positioned, how you can improve how you're sitting in your chair. Those are some things that will make a big, big difference in your workstation and how you work and how your body responds. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough, standing up and moving. We have a thing here in our office that we do that's kind of fun. It's called motion is lotion, because when you're moving, your body gets lubricated. So your joints and all your systems get lubricated. That's the lotion, and your body will respond positively to that. It's really important to get up, to move, even if it's just in your own office. We have someone who works here who stands up and does yoga at her desk. I mean, we just have all kinds of ways to take care of ourselves. I don't know if that gives you enough of an answer, but you're right on when you talk about ergonomics. Another question?
Somebody mentioned they have a situation they can actually sit or stand in their work.
That's great. A sit-stand desk, those are great. They can work really well. We do have someone in our office who has one, and they just never used it, so they got to pass it on to somebody else who said, hey, I want to try that. And those are really helpful. And sometimes if you don't have a capacity in your office to get something like that, and it's not medically necessary, or a doctor hasn't written a script for that, sometimes I've seen people get a box and set it on their desk, and if you can, move your, what is this called?
Keyboard.
A keyboard, thank you. And if you can put your keyboard on it, or you can just stand and write notes on it while you're standing for periods of time, those are some things that can help. Any other questions?
I think that's all for the time.
Okay, I want to thank you, everyone, so much for joining in on this today. Take a little time today, if you can. See if you are able to just add a few of the things that we looked at that are just take a minute or two here, remembering that 10 one-minute breaks in a day can give you as much of a relief as a 20-minute meditation time would. And please don't hesitate to call. Call our EAP, call if you just need to talk with the counselor on the phone briefly, talk to trusted friends, family members, and take in some nice deep breaths and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. We appreciate everybody attending, and hopefully we'll see you all next month. Thank you. Bye-bye.